Welcome to the Inside Carolina podcast. I am your host, Tommy Ashley. I am joined by Joey Powell. We've got a special edition of the 40 Club here. If you're watching on YouTube, you might recognize the guest, but if you're not on YouTube, I'll get to that in just a second. Of course, we're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. They can get you cool gear if you visit them on Franklin Street or if you visit them online at johnnytshirt.com. And of course, if you're an Inside Carolina Premium subscriber, which if you're not, I'm not sure what you're waiting on. You can't do any better than Inside Carolina Premium. You get 10% off your order at Johnny T-Shirt. And of course, with football season coming around, the gear you can get for the new football full capacity Keenan Stadium is all right there on Franklin Street or at your fingertips online.
I mean, you can't get gear like our guest has, but you can get stuff just like it.
I was going to say you probably need to work somewhere to get the gear that our guest has,
Yeah.
and that might be a discussion as we get into this podcast. But I want to welcome Mr. Jason Freeman into the 40 Club. Jason, what's going on?
Hey guys, appreciate you having me on. Excited to talk about Carolina football and what we do here in the equipment room.
Yeah, I remember. I can't remember how long it's been. It's been quite a good while ago. You were on Inside Carolina, did an interview with Deanna Kunovac back in the day, and sort of shared the inside baseball process of the equipment deal. Of course, your roles changed a little bit since then, but Jason, let me go back to when you first started doing this, because as we talked a little bit off air, I've been with Inside Carolina since '98. You've been with Carolina football since before that. Tell us how it all started, my man.
So for me, it started. I didn't work Carolina football my freshman year at Carolina, the fall of my freshman year, which was 1994. Started in the springtime. Kind of saw an ad in the DTH that they needed some help, and went and interviewed with Dominic Morelli, who was the head equipment manager, and Mike Bunning, who was the assistant. And they brought me on in the springtime just to kind of try things out, see what I thought about it. Because sometimes you think it's going to be something and it turns out to be something else. And, it changed my life, led me down this career path. And, I'm so grateful for those guys for giving me that opportunity. So, being here with Coach Brown, as a student and now as a full-time staff member has kind of come full circle.
A lot to dig into there. Let me ask you the question. Tell me about your first day when you got involved in this, because I know as a freshman, which I have an 18-year-old that will start in less than a month at Carolina, I can imagine that has your head spinning anyway, being a student in college. And now you're had the prospect of working for Carolina football and Coach Brown. What's it like that first day or those first days on that job for you?
I think it's a little nerve wracking. I was lucky that I kind of had a semester under my belt, so I wasn't quite thrown into it immediately. I kind of knew what college was about, which I think helped me out in the end. And springtime's a little, it's not as many hours as you put in during the fall, so I could kind of get my feet wet a little bit. Worked with the offensive line, so Jeff Saturday and those guys, became good buds of mine during that time. But it was, those first few days are you're just trying to figure out where you need to be. You're everything's churning, your mind's racing. You're trying to make sure you don't mess anything up because you won't practice to run smoothly for everybody. And so you're just kind of not necessarily thrown to the wolves, but you're out there, you're putting in the work, you're trying not to mess up. And so but each day, you kind of get a little more comfortable with what you're doing, and it makes each day go by a little bit better than the previous one.
Jason, I am always in awe of guys that end up being able to do what they want to do for a career. I consider myself being able to do that both with Inside Carolina, but also in my full-time gig. And so I'm always in awe of you. But help me understand. You got to Chapel Hill, and you're from Weaverville. You get to Carolina as a freshman, wide-eyed freshman. I'm assuming you were a fan when you got to school. How do you compartmentalize as a freshman? A lot of people can do it as adults when they get into the media or when they start working for their favorite team or whatever. But how do you, as a college freshman, go from being a fan? And I know you didn't work for the program your first year, but you were still a freshman and a fan when you got to campus. How do you make that transition to, I don't know, being a part of the program and not being a fan all the time? How does that work?
Yeah, I think it's things that Damo and Mike instilled in me. That this is a job. This is a profession, and you need to be professional when you're here. You don't need to be. You're not here to make friends. You're not here to be buddy buddy with the guys. You're here to do a job. And so, I think that was instilled in me. The hard work that my parents instilled in me whenever I was younger. So I took it very serious and knew that not everybody got this opportunity to be a student equipment manager when they got to school. And so I took it very serious, and I wanted to make sure that I worked hard and showed that work ethic. So, because it wasn't a given that I'd be brought back in the fall. So I wanted to make sure that I focused on what I needed to focus on so I could get back in the fall and I could experience the season on the sidelines and what all that entails. So it made it, you're still a little bit, in awe, I think, when you see these guys, just because they're so much bigger than you are, and bigger than most people that you went to high school with. So, once you kind of get over that factor of just how big they are, and even nowadays, guys are just so much bigger than they were back in the mid '90s. It's just amazing to see the transformation of some of these kids that come in January as early enrollees, and the size that these kids have on them.
I want to come back to that. I'm going to try to remember to make a note so I can come back, because there's something I want to
Okay.
ask you off the tail end of that. But when did the wow factor wear off for you? And I know it's not really the same as the question I just asked. I was asking about being a fan just now, but when did the wow factor wear off? Because one of the things we've learned about Mac Brown is that his program is going to be a top level program from, every single fiber of its being. When did the wow factor wear off and you just kind of understood, okay, this is, as amazing as this is the standard that we will all uphold, and this is just part of my job, to reference your quote a second ago. When did kind of the wow factor wear off and you realize, no, this is just the standard we're going to upkeep?
Right. I think that, that happened, a few days into the job. Once you're out there at practice and you're kind of experiencing how fast you're going, or, things are just buzzing. I mean,
Sure.
things are coming at you a million miles an hour. You're trying to figure out, where do I need to be? Where am I supposed to go? You're trying to figure out what this script means that you got, and inside run and 7-on-7, and where should you be based on what position you are, and what are you supposed to be doing during those times, and still trying to learn players' names and coaches' names, and so you're just kind of in the first few days, you're just kind of, your head's just spinning. So you don't really think about that wow factor of, wow, I'm getting to work with Carolina football. I think when you first get hired, you definitely got that. You're just excited. But once you got into the swing of things, I think it wears off pretty quick, and you know that it's a job that you got to do.
You talk about the speed of things, and again, going back to that standard of which Mac Brown and his staff and his team are going to uphold. Uh, Do you have kind of a worst memory, or have you blocked it out of maybe a time when you were in the middle of a drill in practice where something didn't go quite right, or you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, or said the wrong thing at the wrong time? Just one of those, old bleep moments that a new guy in a big fast-paced environment might have.
Right. I think for me, it was just being on the sidelines, and your first game, you're a little nervous because it's your first game, and back then we didn't have wireless headsets. Everybody had the cords, and so the coach that I was with, he was a runner, so I was dropping that cord back and forth, trying to gather it back up. People were stepping on it, and for me, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, but I remember that first game. I think we were playing Syracuse. It was a night game. Donovan McNabb was the quarterback,
Mhm.
and right before kickoff, somebody ran between one of the other student managers and the coach and snapped his cord in half,
Oh,
cut off all the communication. And so I can remember that vividly from my first game, that happening, and obviously you know the aftermath of that, trying to find the headset guys to get a new cord, get that fixed before we kicked it off. But I just remember when it snapped, I can just remember that kid's eyes, just like he thought it was over for him. But that was yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I remember that game vividly. Still thought Carolina should have won that game. So you're there, you go into freshman, sophomore, you end up graduating in 98. At the time, the high point of Carolina football, really, and quite some time, probably as long as just about anybody listening or watching this podcast. You do your internship and then you're hired full time in 1999. What is the difference for you being hired full-time versus being a student manager? What's that transition?
I think, that year interning with Dominic and Mike really helped me out to see kind of when you're here all day, when you're a student manager, you're here maybe 5 hours a day, including practice and things that got to be done. And then when you're here all day long, you kind of get to know what needs to be done, what's going on behind the scenes, what Dominic was doing, what Mike was doing. And then when Mike transitioned out of that role and Damo promoted me to assistant, then you really realized like everything that goes on. And sometimes I'll talk about that with the student managers is that, they don't necessarily see everything that we do behind the scenes, just like I don't see everything they do behind the scenes. But it's just an appreciation for all the things that go on behind the scenes to make Carolina football run smoothly from our end. So it's just a lot of hard work and a lot of stuff to make sure that we stay kind of behind the scenes and not out in the open.
Can you quantify the amount of attention to detail that has to happen for these guys to roll out? And we'll get into it in more detail, but for these guys to roll out on a game day looking most of the time as sharp as any team in the country. Can you
Right.
quantify that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's checklist. It's making sure that everybody has everything they need. That each coach is different from what they want to wear on game day. Each player is different than what he wants to wear on game day, and really having a grasp of that, so they don't really want for anything when it comes to game day. That they can just focus on the game. They don't have to come up and ask for wristbands or gloves or a new pair of cleats or different socks that they may want to wear, and it's all in their locker, and they can just come in, put the stuff on, and focus on the game. And being an equipment manager, you almost become OCD. That I wasn't that way when I came to college. I was probably a little messy, but now, even to this day, I think it's really helped me with my organization and how I do things not only at work but at home, of keeping things organized and in a certain place.
Yeah, you got to know where all that stuff is. I know I've talked to you there on site, and it was several years ago. I wish I could organize my closets and have my children organize their closets as well as y'all had it. I mean, it was flawless, but it has to be, right? Because if you need a size 13 pair of cleats, you know exactly where it is. And so let me ask you this. You're there for Mac's first one, and then Torbush, and then Bunning, and then Butch, and then Withers for a minute, and then Fedora, and now Mac again.
Right.
That's a hell of a run, man. Can you
I know.
do you sit back at all, and then probably not now since it's in the middle of everything, but and think like, wow, that's a lot. I mean, and those guys are completely different, or are they? How does the head coach's personality affect your job?
I think it's each head coach is different, and I think the head coaches that give you that leeway and don't micromanage you um, are probably the best guys to work for, because you feel like they trust you. They trust you to do your job. They know you're doing it to a high level, and they don't have to worry about things. Those that want to micromanage, makes you doubt the level of confidence they have in maybe the job that you're doing. And I've been extremely lucky to, like you said, to see all those coaches, to listen to that list, to still be here at Carolina, and I consider that to be a blessing every day, that I get to come to work and I get to come to do something that I love to do every day, because a lot of people don't get to do that.
Is it stressful for guys in your position? Clearly, the staff, coordinators, and all that. When there's coaching changes, it's hectic, and it's a lot of upheaval for a lot of people's lives. How is it for guys in your position, guys that are not actually on not the staff itself, the coaches themselves, but everybody else? Because I think people lose sight of that when there's coaching changes, when they're hollering, so and so needs to be fired. How many people that actually affects? How is it for you, the support staff type folks, when dealing with all those changes?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be, some of these people you grow to be friends with. And it's tough to see these people go because it's not only they're getting fired, but it upheaves their family, their kids, all that kind of stuff goes on. And for us as well, I mean, we're state employees just like those guys are. We're classified a little bit differently, but we could be moved and assigned a different position somewhere else on campus. So it's not a guarantee that you're going to get to stay on when a new staff is brought on board. So there's always a little bit of worry there, because we've all got families and kids and stuff like that we are help support. And so I've just been very lucky to build relationships with these coaches and the players and kind of have that support from them over the years, and maybe that's what's helped me stay on as long as I have.
Well, that and the fact that you're really, really good at your job, I would assume too. I mean, that's you don't just stick around because you're a nice piece of furniture, bro.
Right.
Listen, you gave us a nice span between the start and where you are now. Help us understand a little bit about what's different in football equipment between the mid 90s and 2021. I mean, I think about technology of helmets and kind of how the shift to protect players from concussions a little better. I think about the difference in the size of pads. I mean, we did an episode of a podcast looking at that, or looking at the season opener in '96, and dude, those guys rolled out there wearing like car hubcaps on their shoulders versus like right now it's a much more slender, sleek, form-fitting style. You've got breathable moisture wicking type material on these uniforms. Help us understand some of the changes in technology that you've seen, and what are some that you maybe like best just from your position.
I think back to whenever when I first started as a student manager, we had a lot of Russell athletic stuff. We had some Apex One stuff. I probably still have some of that somewhere in a closet, some retro stuff. But I've got actually a picture of Jeff Saturday. Yeah,
there's
right
Mac
there.
wearing an Apex One shirt right there. I don't know if you still have one of those hanging around, but
that is definitely retro. But I've got a jersey that Jeff Saturday gave me that's in here, and I can see his shoulder pads as I turn and look at it, and I just think like, wow, like these guys used to wear these baggy jerseys, and these that didn't really wick away sweat, and these big huge shoulder pads and the helmets, and just how much technology has changed. And now with brand Jordan, just and guys are, when it comes to cleats, they talk about, there may be a difference of half an ounce, but the guys can feel that now. This cleat weighs 8.1 ounces and this one weighs 7.6. I want to wear that. They want to be as light as they can be on the field. They want to wear small knee pads. They don't want to wear those big thigh pads. So we have to find that happy medium of keeping them protected, but also keeping them light and fast out there. The jerseys are just unbelievable with the way they wick away the moisture and how light they are compared to, I picked up an old jersey the other day and I thought, gosh, this thing is so heavy. But just I think a lot of people when they when they get an authentic helmet, I could see you guys have got some of those, but just even the weight of that helmet, I think people are surprised at how much it weighs. You're looking 4 to 5 pounds, just depending on the face mask that's on there, and thinking about wearing that on your head for 3.5 hours for a game. So and a lot of the stuff with the dry fit material and everything that's come out has really helped the guys with their conditioning. And you don't see those cotton t-shirts that you used to see back in the mid 90s where guys would just soak through them with sweat. These that they have nowadays are obviously helping them wick that moisture away. And so you don't get as tired because you don't have all that weight added to your body. And the cleats are so much different. Like I said, they're so much lighter nowadays. And guys obviously are trying to wear like I said, the smallest thing they can put on that'll still keep them protected. So it's just interesting to see how much helmets have changed from a safety standpoint. With all the new technologies coming out. I mean, you can 3D scan people's heads nowadays and it'll be a custom fit helmet just for that person. And it's just amazing what you can do with what's out there right now.
I'm glad you got a chance to talk with us about the technological side of things. 'Cause I think a lot of folks are going to fall into the trap that I did at the first part of your answer. There is talking about I guess the cosmetic side of things and the visual side of things. So now that we've talked about the science and the tech behind it, you got to help me you got to help me get inside your head or your old vintage locker. What are some of the visual pattern style trends that you miss or maybe don't miss? I mean, you mentioned that Apex one, or were you a guy that liked the thin stripe that we had during the on the football jerseys during the bunning years? I'm sorry, not the jerseys, the pants. Tell me some of your as the preeminent equipment guru here. What's some of your favorites and least favorites from the aesthetic side of things that the Tar Heels have had?
I think us bringing back those throwbacks, this past year, it was just such a huge hit with not only the players and the coaches and our staff,
Mhm.
but the fans. Just to throw back to that Dre Bly era, and those were obviously those mean a lot to me because that's the time that I was here at Carolina when we wore those uniforms. But in my mind, our current uniforms are the best in the country. I mean, I think the Argyle on them is just enough to differentiate us, and obviously, being the school that wears Carolina blue, when you show up on game day, seeing that color, it's Carolina playing on TV. Um, so definitely the newer set of uniforms are my favorite. If we go all white, I really like that look.
Mm.
I guess I'm a big proponent of the helmet matching the breeches. I really like a white helmet, blue jersey, white breeches combo, or
Mhm.
all white or all blue, just kind of mixing it up. But yeah, if I had to say, I really, throwbacks always have a special place in my heart. Those mid '90s jerseys. Um, we strayed away from that a little bit, with different coaching changes, but I think we really nailed it on the head when we switched to the current uniform palette that we wear now.
And I've got to give a little tip of the cap for your use of the word britches, by the way. People don't say britches enough, so shout out to you for keeping that at our lexicon. One more, I'm gonna throw it back to Tommy for a second. What's your favorite non-UNC uniform that you've seen around the country? I mean, I think the Nike schools probably do it the best. If I'm sharing my opinion, I think everybody thinks about Oregon, but I've always been partial to a school like Oklahoma State, who with their the graphite, the gunmetal colors that they have. I've seen TCU has done some really cool stuff. In your opinion, outside of Carolina, what's your favorite uniform combo that you've seen out there in the college landscape?
I'm a big fan of kind of what Air Force does each year. They kind of do a special uniform and
Yeah.
a special helmet to honor different things in history. And I actually got one of the helmets in my office. It's the shark tooth with the eyes, kind of like what they used to put on the planes. And
Hmm.
I just think they do a really good job of incorporating history and but yet keeping it new and fresh. So I always like to see what they're going to come out with each year.
Yeah, that's
So I know
cool.
it's a kind of a unconventional answer to say
No,
Air
I like
Force,
it.
but they always kind of do something different that's somebody else isn't doing. So I always appreciate that.
I think Tommy and I talked about it before. I'm a big fan of the Army Navy game just
Yeah.
because they do something similar to what you're talking about that Air Force does, where they'll throw back to a certain a certain unit or a platoon's style and kind of gives a little homage to them. Tommy, you're up.
Mm.
Keeping in that same vein, it Carolina's the preeminent Jordan Brand school. I mean, Michigan might could say they are, but we know that's not accurate. And you got Nike, and always been that. But do you ever um, look around at other schools and say, that's something that's pretty cool? I wonder if we could try that. I mean, is there ever, or has there ever been any of that when developing this Carolina stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're always looking out there to see what else is out there, see what other people are doing. But uh, at Carolina, I just feel like with our colors and that Argyle, and now all the sports pretty much are incorporating that into their uniforms, whether it's soccer or lacrosse or swimming and diving. All those sports are field hockey. They're incorporating that Argyle pattern, and I just think it's a classic look and really embodies Carolina and what we what we are here. So it's just, I think we're very traditional in some sense, and we really like to stick with Carolina blue and stick with white, and really showcase those colors when we're playing, so people know it's us.
I got a question about that after the break. Let me take a short sense to talk about Johnny T-Shirt, JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Again, they are our sponsors of this podcast and great friends of all of you at Inside Carolina. If you're a premium subscriber, especially, you get your 10% off their order. Hit them up. They need your support. They're open on Franklin Street. It's wide open in Chapel Hill, fixing to be even more wide open when students come back. And then, of course, into football season. We're going to take another break, let the national guys pay the bills. We'll be right back with Jason Freeman. All right, we're back. This is the Inside Carolina podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley. That's Joey Powell. Jbone, Jason Freeman, down on the bottom of your YouTube screen. Where'd the nickname come from, Bone? You got to tell us.
That was Jeff Saturday. As a freshman there in the springtime working with the offensive line. I was a lot skinnier than I am nowadays.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. So he started calling me Jbone, and it just kind of stuck. Growing up, I was always Freebird. That's what everybody called me when I was all through high school. I was always Freebird. That was my nickname. So, but nobody around here knows me as Freebird. It's Jbone now. So it's always strange when the freshmen first get here, they're always like, Mr. Freeman or Jason or, and I'm like, who are you talking about? I said, just call me Jbone. So it's always interesting when a new class comes in.
That'd be cool to be named by a Hall of Famer, right?
Right, exactly.
Hall of Famer. That's pretty strong, man.
And then your other name's Freebird, man. You got two great nicknames.
I know. Yeah, Jeff's been good to me over the years. Like I said, we became really good friends whenever we were here at Carolina, and as he played in the pros, I'd go up and catch a game here and there and just visit with him. And it's just neat to see his son here now playing, which will make you feel really, really old when you start to see players that you were here with start to have their kids come back to college with Errol Hood's son is playing running back for us now, and then with Jeffrey Saturday playing wide receiver for us. So time flies.
Time indeed does. Speaking of time, it's been a little while, but what'd you think? What did y'all collectively think? Be honest, of the black era. I'll admit, I thought the All Blacks on Zero Dark Thursday were
those were
nice.
Strong.
But what did the equipment team think of the black, incorporating the black into the uniforms there for those few years?
I think it was different. I think the numbers being black weren't, in my mind, the best look. I really like blue and white and white and blue with numbers. But I agree that all black uniform was really, really unique and really a really cool look. I really like the all black uniforms, and I know we got the navy now, which is more of a Carolina color than black is. So I'm happy that we've got the navy, but it kind of seems like it runs in patterns. You have the navy, people want the black, and you have the black, people want the navy. So, but I really love our navy uniforms. I think they're some of the best out there.
They are indeed. All right. Let's play not rapid fire, but I want simple answers. Who's the biggest, and I'll go back since you started, so we're not picking on current team members. Who had to have their uniform perfect? Who was the most anal about their uniform?
Who's the biggest diva? Yeah.
Biggest diva. Honest. I mean, I think he would agree with this. I think Dre Bly would agree that it was probably him. I think Coach Bly always wanted to look sharp and on point, and I think even to this day he has that kind of swagger about him that he wants to, the way he carries himself. And when you're an All-American like he was and a Hall of Famer, then you've got every right to be that way. And Dre's he's just a great guy and a great coach, and I'm just really excited that he's back here with us.
He's definitely added a ton being there. What position group's the biggest pain to deal with as far as an equipment manager?
Great question, Tommy.
Yeah, that is a great question. I mean, not to say that any of them are a pain. I don't want it
And
to
it's
come across
relative.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which one requires more attention to detail, Jason? How's that? Is that safer?
right. I mean, it's going to be the DBs and the receivers. I mean, because those are your skill positions. You know, your offensive line, defensive line. I mean, those guys will be out there wearing gloves that are ripped up and torn, and they don't care. The guys in the trenches, they say they get ugly in
Right.
the trenches. They don't care about those things.
They ever ask you to rip your shirt before they put it on?
No, they're always pretty good about everything. But the DBs and the wide receivers are your guys that come up needing the most stuff. And but the O line, D line, linebackers, all those guys are pretty easy going. And usually it's just a couple guys here and a couple guys there for the most part. We've just got to. I've just seen how things change over the years, and just the group of kids that Coach Brown's brought in and recruited is just different. They're, I don't know the best way to put it. Just the respect level they have for what we do back here, and the respect level we have for what they do out on the field, kind of go hand in hand. And so, we're just pretty lucky that we got a group of great kids, and it's amazing because each year is different, and you wonder how's this group going to be compared to other years, but it's been phenomenal. These kids have really done a great job of embracing and holding themselves accountable for things.
It's the old look good, play good thing, right?
Right.
If they think they look good, then they're going to play better. How much do uniforms and equipment do you think factor into recruiting? I mean, it's clearly a big deal.
I think it's a huge deal. I think you see it with the recruits nowadays. They come in and they want to put on the jersey and the helmet and take pictures and put it out there on the internet, on Instagram, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. So I think it plays a huge factor in us being, the premier Jordan brand school. Really sets us apart that we're able to offer things that other schools can't.
I love the fact that you guys have kind of glommed onto that, and I think it points to the genius of Mac Brown and you guys as a staff. You've got to know that one of the most, I guess, actively sought out tweets or Instagram posts every week is the Thursday uniform post, because I'm sure you're sitting around, people are hassling you waiting to drop it up there. You got to love that, right?
Yeah, I think it's people are excited to see what we're wearing, and I think we keep it within the color palette that blue and white each and every week. And what we do is with the leadership council is we kind of give them some options of what to wear. Maybe 3 or 4 choices. Depending on if we're home or away. Sometimes we'll get that question. Why aren't you wearing blue jerseys at Virginia Tech or at Georgia Tech? And it's like, well, we have. I guess Georgia Tech's different, but because they wear dark jerseys at home. But always thinking, well, you have to wear white jerseys on the road, and you have to wear Carolina blue jerseys at home, or a dark color jersey at home, I should say.
So a couple more in Tommy's vein of rapid fire. You talked about a Jeff Saturday jersey. I see you've got some helmets back behind you. What's your favorite piece personally of UNC gear, or is it non-UNC gear that you have?
There's actually in my office. There's actually a number one plaque that Chase Rice gave me for his first number one single, "Eyes on You."
Oh
And
wow!
I was talking to somebody about that the other day, and how that was one of the probably the coolest gifts somebody's ever given me. Obviously, um, that and the guitar that my wife gave me for my 40th birthday that Eric Church signed for me behind me are probably the 2 things that I treasure the most that I have in the office. But yeah, I got a package from Nashville at the house one day, and I said, well, I didn't order anything from Nashville. Like, what is this? And I opened it up, and it was like, dedicated to Jason Freeman, Chase Rice, number one, "Eyes on You," or whatever. And I thought, like, wow, that's really thoughtful,
Yeah.
and really, kind of got me a little bit, got me choked up a little bit that somebody would do something like that for me. Because my personality is, I get more pleasure giving gifts than I do receiving them. Because when you're an equipment guy, people always say, like, hey, what can I do for you? What can let me do something for you. And I know when you get asked for something every single day, whether it's a pair of gloves or a pair of
Yeah.
socks, unless I really need something, I don't bother people with that. That's just not my personality. I just get more pleasure giving somebody something and seeing the reaction that they have. So kind of to have that flipped on me with the guitar and the number one plaque kind of caught me off guard, I guess.
That's cool, man. You talk about your penchant for giving things. I think it's become very well known of how well you and the football program take care of the alumni in the NFL, and you see that on social media all the time. Uh, who I figure how I want to ask this because I don't want to make anybody look like they're greedy, but uh, who is the guy that you can never send enough stuff to in the NFL? Who's the guy that will, if you send it to him, you know he's going to be decked out in it for the next 25 times you see him in public?
That's a tough question because, I think Coach Brown does a good job of that. We'll send stuff to those guys that are in the NFL and when alumni coming back and just welcoming them back and making them feel like they can come back because sometimes it's tough for those guys because they don't necessarily know the current coaching staff. They may have played for another coach and they don't really know anybody here, and I think that makes it. Sometimes they feel like they can't come back, but I think Coach Brown's really done a great job just embracing those lettermen and saying, hey, please come back. We want you to come back. We want you to spend time here at Carolina. We want you to bring your family. We want you to bring your kids. And he does the same thing with the staff. He wants us to bring our wives around. He wants us to bring our kids around. He wants them to be around because we spend so much time here, and any time that we can bring them around and spend time with us is key. So he's really done just a great job of not only saying that we're family, but you can preach it sometimes, it's not necessarily true, but with Coach Brown, he preaches it, he lives it, he makes sure that we all feel like we're part of the team and that we all contribute something to make Carolina football successful each week.
Yeah, and one of the ways you can kind of do that and keep that family strong is, by sending gifts to guys that have worn the uniform before. One more, and I'll throw it back to Tommy. I remember specifically the Geo punt return game when UNC broke out the chrome helmets, and I want to set this up in a certain way because you talk about being, well, you don't talk about it, but you're an unheralded guy. You don't like to have the spotlight on you. You don't want to ask for things, but I think one of the coolest moments that I've seen was the video that the video staff did showing you guys and how you got all of those chrome helmets in everybody's locker without anybody knowing and it being kind of a surprise. I have to think that's one of your favorite moments, in seeing all those guys come back in and see the new helmets and so on. And is that your top number one favorite moment since you've had this job? And if it's not, what is your favorite moment since you've had this gig, as it relates to equipment and football gear?
Right. I think just the surprise on their face was just priceless. Like you can't put it into words what it's like they couldn't believe it. They didn't even know the helmets existed. They didn't even know we were working on the helmets. And we, my staff and I, we worked on those tirelessly. Like we've got a storage end down at the other end, so nobody would see us. Kind of behind closed doors,
Like
make
cloak
sure
and
that,
dagger in the dark,
yeah.
like
And we knew we had a limited amount of time from the time pregame ended until they ran back out of the tunnel.
Mhm.
And you haven't been able to fit these guys for the helmet. And, you know that he wears a size large, uh, speed flex helmet, and he wears, 3/4 inch jaw pads, and he wears this kind of chin strap, and he wears, a shield on his helmet and all that kind of stuff. But still, everyone's head fits differently. And some guys, you have to, there's different bladders inside the helmet where you can inflate them with air and to get a better fit, and you have to adjust the chin strap. So we kind of, we're trying to do all that, which usually would take a lot longer than it did in a
Mhm.
condensed amount of time. So it was having everybody on board and making sure that not only did we get the helmets fit, but they were fit in a safe manner, and the guys felt comfortable in them because they hadn't had a chance to go out and sweat in these helmets at practice like we do with normal game helmets and kind of let them break them in a little bit. It was just a complete surprise, and it went off without a hitch. And I just remember just just the stress just being relieved off of me once we, because holding a secret like that is very hard. And then you know you have to trust your staff that nobody's going to tell their parents or their friend who, please don't tell anybody. And then they tell
Yeah.
somebody, oh, don't tell anybody. And then they tell somebody, and then it gets out. So we really put in a lot of hours to get those special helmets done. And then, then we did it again at Duke, I think a couple years later, when we played at Duke. So I definitely say that's probably one of the top moments for me, work related. It just was just seeing their faces. And even when we played at Duke and we wore the kind of the Carolina blue chrome helmets, I can remember like the first, you have to kind of go about 150 yards from the field to the locker room at Duke. And like the first guys got to the locker room and the noise starts escalating a little bit, guys are hooping and hollering. And then I can start to see a wave of guys just taking off running to the locker room so they can see what's inside the locker room. And it was like, wow, we've really pulled this off.
That's cool.
Again. And it's a really special time for Carolina. Obviously we won both of those games when we wore those helmets for the first time. So yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. That's been a very special career moment for me.
Geochrome or the blue chrome, your favorite look?
Who I really like the blue chrome. I know the Geo one kind of means more just because of the of the result, the punt and taking it to the house, and just the emotion of the stadium and just how it was just rocking. And but from aesthetic wise, I really like the blue chrome better than the first chrome, the Geo chrome.
I think I might agree with you across the board on that answer. That
Right.
blue chrome is kind of nice. You started talking about, and we're talking to Jason Freeman, Jbone, equipment manager at Carolina. You talked about all the different options on a helmet. How many different variables go into one player's uniform?
Phew,
If you
gosh.
can ballpark it. Because it's
Yeah,
not
I
as simple as pulling a jersey, pulling some pants, throw some.
No, I mean, each player wears, they can wear different size jerseys, pants, sock combinations, whether they want to wear long socks, calf length socks, ankle socks, no show socks. The cleat options are different based on, what position you play. And then, helmet wise, there's different manufacturers, and then there's different face masks. And I mean, just on the team alone, there's probably, I don't know, 15 to 20 different face masks that guys wear based on whatever position they are. And, as they, Sam Howell wears a different face mask, and then some of the other guys that are skill positions, and really kind of set the tone. Actually, there's a little inside story was Travis Etienne down at Clemson. He wanted to wear the Sam Howell face mask. It's really the OBJ is the one that first wore that style face mask. So when we got it in and Sam was wearing it, my buddy Abe down at Clemson called me up and was like, man, Travis saw the face mask that Sam's wearing, and he wants to wear it, this weekend against whoever they were playing. And he's like, I can't get any, so, equipment guys, we try to help each other out. So I sent him a couple down there. So, and then that's what Travis wore that next week. But it was just interesting to think that, like, he's sitting at the house watching Carolina play and sees Sam wearing a different face mask. It says, man, I really want to wear that. But that's what, our student athletes do. They see somebody in the pros wearing a certain style face mask or a certain style helmet, and we'll try it on them and make sure that it fits their head. Because sometimes they may see something, they try it on, they're like, I don't like this as good as my other helmet. But it's definitely interesting to see how the NFL and college, and even I'm sure that factors into high school and kids that play, Pee Wee football. They see their heroes wearing, a certain style face mask. Or I think it was the quarterback from Oregon a few years ago. I think he had the area code was his face mask. It was like, I can't remember what it was, 808 or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but that separated him, and guys were seeing that, thinking that, oh, that's really cool. So guys really pay attention to what other people are wearing throughout the country, I guess is the point I was trying to make.
Is there a limit? I'm a freshman at Carolina. I come in, I'm on the roster. I say, this is what I want to do. Is there a limit to what guys can do? Obviously, it has to fall within the rules or whatever, but what are my limits as far as gear?
No, I mean, I think what we do is you kind of have to see the trends, especially as you get older. The guys start to do different things that are, they want to wear smaller knee pads, and they want to wear sleeveless hoodies for pregame, and things that nowadays you almost have a pregame outfit that you put on. Maybe that's your travel sweats that you wear into the stadium, and then once you get there, you put on your pregame outfits. You may wear some different cleats or some different tennis shoes, and you wear some shorts and a sleeveless hoodie, or a t-shirt, and nowadays they all have to have numbers on them so the officials can identify the player if there were ever to be any issues during pregame.
Jason, I'm sorry to step on you, but how much of that stuff is
Okay.
functional and how much of it is just what the player likes?
I think I think it's all about making them feel relaxed, like just a way. You don't want to go out for pregame and go already have your pants on and your shoulder pads and your jersey. You want to save that to the last minute, keep all that weight off of your body. You want something lightweight, something very something that's going to wick that. If you're kicking off at 3:30 and you get there at 1:30 and you're out there in the hot sun, you want to stay cool and relax. So when you come inside, you can wait kind of to the last minute to put on your helmet and shoulder pads and knee pads and everything else you need to wear. So I think it definitely serves a purpose. It keeps the guys a lot cooler, and I think it keeps them a little more relaxed.
Last one I've got for you. Hold on, Bone. I got to
right.
get in this one. I've been itching. What's the strangest request you've had from a player
Ooh.
as it relates to gear?
I mean, sometimes, probably most people don't even realize this, but one foot is bigger than the other. Usually, it could be a half a size, and most people just live with it. So I think when you have that guy that needs that 12 and a half in his left shoe and a 13 in the right, you can't do anything with the other shoes. So you just have to, get rid of them. They don't really serve a purpose because you can't give somebody else a mismatched pair of shoes. So that kind of comes to my mind of sometimes that happens, but obviously we've got a great contract here with Brand Jordan. So it allows us to outfit these guys however they need to be outfitted.
So I got one more, and since we're at the tail end, this might give you an opportunity to duck the question or just sidestep it or stiff arm it, or however you want to call it.
Okay.
I think it's been long enough that maybe the statute of limitations has run out on this. But one of the things I love about following the equipment staff on social media is you guys always give a shout out to the visiting teams when they clean up their area. And you talked about kind of the camaraderie and the brotherhood you have with other equipment managers around the country. I think that's
Right.
really awesome to see. My question is the famed and vaunted time where a university in Durham claimed there was lots of destruction on behalf of UNC in the visitors' locker room when North Carolina played at said university. How much of that was exaggerated? Because a lot of fans, myself included, tend to think that was a little bit of pettiness on behalf of the other school, that school up in Durham. As the guy who was there, was that exaggerated, or was there actually real monetary damage done to the facility?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just some of that Carolina blue paint got on things. Whether it was a carpet or when you bring a bell into the locker room like that, that the paint got on a few items that are in the locker room. But it just hindsight, probably should have spray painted it on the field like we had done. But I think everybody was so excited to get the bell back. You really don't think about those kinds of things, and the pure joy of those kids celebrating probably made it worth every penny that we were charged.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we had similar vein, we had Dan Orner on this podcast not too terribly long ago, and he talked about the old helmet and
running into it.
yeah, and he actually said the helmet fought back a little more than he thought it would. But yeah, that was another one of those instances. Last question for you, Bone, and I appreciate you taking the time to join Joey and I. It's always fun to talk this type stuff. You've been in the room where it happened for 25 years now. 26 years?
Yeah, I guess if you start 95, spring of 95, so yeah.
That's crazy to believe. I know it is for you. It is for me because it makes me feel old too. But biggest memory on the field, because when you see you on the sidelines over the years, you're right behind the head coach, whoever it is.
Right. You get a lot of airtime, dude.
You do. You get a lot of airtime. You could probably sell eye black with websites on it. But and we can talk about NIL too. But tell me the biggest moment for you being on that sideline for Carolina football over the last 25, 26 years. What is it?
I think a few come to mind. I mean, we talked about the Geo punt return. I think the Connor Barth kick, that was just unbelievable to experience that. I think the win we had down at Florida State with the long field goal by Nick Weiler, and Nick running down the field doing the tomahawk chop. That was memorable. Playing in the ACC championship, just how special that was to be there and have a chance to win it. But all those games are just ingrained in my memory. Certain plays. It's sometimes it's harder. I'll turn on ACC Network and they'll show a game, and I'm like, oh, I remember this game now. Like it starts to come back to you. But it's more moments that you remember. In my instance, and just the joy and the elation you felt, like we said, when Gio returned the punt, or when Nick Weiler kicked that field goal, or even Dan Orner kicking that field goal. You brought back memories there of him running into that inflatable Duke helmet, or things that I'll never forget. And just you're kind of just running around, just all excited, and it's I still pinch myself that I'm lucky to get to do what I do every day, because it's a joy to come to work, and with Connor and Mike, who I work with, and my student managers, just the hard work that they put in behind the scenes to make Carolina football run so smooth. It really is they say we're the team behind the team, and that really is true, because we don't want anybody to have to worry about their equipment or feeling safe out there, or making sure they have what they need. We want them to make sure that they're focused on the game, and if we can have a game go off and we don't have any issues, we consider that a success. But I think a lot of people don't realize is that we take a big 53-foot tractor trailer with us on the road, and that's loaded down with everything we need, everything the athletic trainers need, the video staff. We're prepared for any weather, whether it's rain, hail, sleet, or snow. It may say it's going to be 90 degrees, but we're still taking stuff that in case the weather takes a turn. As an equipment manager, kind of the motto is it's better to have it, not need it, than need it and not have it. So it's kind of our mantra we live by back here.
Well, you've certainly done a great job at it over the last 25, 26 years. You've sort of, you're one of those guys that rose from the bottom, and now you're here, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. It is nobody will ever say that Carolina the play might be questionable at times. The look and the fit is never questionable, and
Never.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and you've had an overwhelming majority, especially of late, of making that happen. So we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. I know Joey appreciates it. I love this kind of stuff. You and I have talked plenty of times before. It's just fascinating to see how it all works and to see the process of getting these guys to look like they look on game days. But Jason, I appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yeah, Bone.
All right.
Appreciate it, buddy. Hopefully folks too will gain a little bit of an extra appreciation for all the work and the meticulous detail that goes into the job that you guys do, making the Tar Heels look as good as they do when the ball kicks off on Saturdays.
I appreciate it, Joey, and thanks, Tommy. I appreciate you both for having me on and kind of talking about what my passion is in life, and that's equipment, and that's Carolina football. And thanks again.
Yeah, man. And like we mentioned and hinted at earlier, you won't meet a nicer guy than Jason Freeman. Jbone, I prefer Freebird. You might hear that being yelled at you. That's classic. But
That'd be a throwback. I like it.
yeah, you wonder like who's this old guy yelling at me? But
Yeah.
we appreciate it. We appreciate everybody listening and watching on the Inside Carolina podcast. I'm Tommy, that's Joey, and that's Jason. The guest is always better than the host, and again, it was today. Johnny T-shirts our sponsor. InsideCarolina.com. We'll talk soon.